nice place down there. We would go in, we'd work at Softus during the day, and of course the early thing that happened at the very beginning of the company that got us into trouble, that we recommend people not do this, is we actually carried our work systems home in a big van, set them up at home, and did the work on our own project at home using the office computers. Not a good idea.
Yeah, that's not a good idea.
And we eventually, more or less got strong-armed into doing a bunch of work for Softus. Otherwise, that would all come back to haunt us. But so for the first projects, writing Commander Keen, it was all of us just kind of working in the lake house at Shreveport. And it was, looking back on it, it was kind of the strange decision about how we managed to move up to Wisconsin, where Tom had gone to college there, and so had Jason Lahoviak. And they're like, looking at it, I think, through the rose-tinted glasses that the college days give you, like, oh, we had such a wonderful time there, neglecting the fact that it gets to be 20 below zero during the winter. And it was, but, we didn't feel rooted down to anything. We were all like, well, we can pick up, we can go wherever we want. That seems like, they tell us it's really, really cool and awesome there, and they've got computer science departments and things, and maybe that's a good idea. So we all just picked up and moved up to Wisconsin for a while there. And on the one hand, when you've got 20 below weather outside, it means everyone stays inside and works a lot. And we got a lot done over that winter, but it came back to us like, nah, we just don't think we want to be sticking around in this location for too long. And we wound up moving down to Texas after that. And we've been really happy in general here. It is tough to convince people that are used to parts of California that Texas is actually a great place to go work on video games, but I think there's, most of us that have been here for a while have been happy with it, and it's unlikely that id Software is going to move anywhere else. But when people talk about years and dates, I never correlate that with anything. People are like, what are you doing in 96 or 98 or 2001? I never can tie that into anything, because all of my history is all broken up with the code that I was working on, the project that I was doing, or the engine that I was developing. And in many ways, I know I'm very fortunate in that the company kind of happened around me. I was doing my thing. I was doing the early scrolling work and the 3D graphics work, and it was Romero and Jay and Tom that would be like, okay, we should really go do something with this. This can be a big deal, and we can make something with this. Like, okay, as long as I keep working on the programming that I'm doing. And, that's the way it went over multiple generations there. Of like, okay, scrolling, now we've got three-dimensional technology, and going through all the different generations of that. I always think about things in terms of, well, this was what we were doing during Quake 2, or this is what we were doing during Doom 2, or Quake World, or something like that. And I can never correlate it to years. People are looking at me as like 99, like, hell if I know. Give me a project and I can kind of correlate what I was doing then. But for me personally, you can't go 20 years without some ups and downs, but I've never really hit a deep lull in anything where I'm not happy with what I'm doing. All it has been is, at worst, maybe a little bit of malaise at some time. But for the most part, it's just amazingly awesome. The job that we have, creating things out of nothing. It's, we're magicians working with ethereal stuff and creating worlds. And, I love the programming and the development probably more now than I ever did before. There was a sense, it's hard to almost go back before the thought of the internet, information at your fingertips. And in many ways, I almost felt off in the wilderness, figuring things out as I went. Not knowing, of course, that there are books of knowledge that were available at universities, but it wasn't at my fingertips, and I was kind of figuring it all out myself. And that's something that you don't get in the current scheme of things, but because everything is out there, and a lot of times it's more important to find things rather than to invent things. But the craft of software development is something that I feel probably more strongly about today than ever before. And I've gotten to work with a lot of really amazing people, programmers, artists, and developers of all kinds. So I get asked a lot over the last 5-10 years. People hear I'm working with rocketry and other stuff there. I'm like, I hear, well, are you going to quit id and go work on rockets? And usually I say, people don't understand that almost any discipline like that doesn't have a fraction of the breadth of what we deal with in building games. And it sounds trivial that, okay, we're building these entertainment applications, things that people spend their odd moments on. But the truth is, it's incredibly sophisticated and detailed. And you could talk about, moonshots and things like that, and I can say, well, our software is a hell of a lot more sophisticated than anything that went into putting people on the moon, and I'm more interested by the challenges of the things that we do here than just about anything else I can think of. I mean, it is true at my heart, I'm an engineer more than I am a gamer specifically. I have great love of games in so many ways, but I could do other things, but I still think this is actually the best place for me to be working and the best things for me to be working on.
And we're really happy that you did that.
All right. We are going to be taking some questions, so if you have a question, you can sidle up to the little microphone there in the center.
That's the first Quakecon keynote, by the way.
Yeah, so actually the first Quakecon, it's looking at the history of this event. I do remember just everybody, we had this tiny room that everybody had their computers set up in, and it was getting really hot and with all the lights off and people tripping over cords, all sorts of safety violations. And I was having a few conversations with random people, but more people started gathering, like, let's just take this outside. And so we all just kind of went out to the curb there in the middle of the night, and I did my normal stream of consciousness, just talk about the things that I'm working on and interested in until everybody kind of got tired and we broke it up. And it's been that way pretty much ever since.
How many people were at the first QuakeCon? What was that experience like?
Yes. I love to brag about this, but I'm the only person that's been at id that's been to every single QuakeCon. And
Yes. You may be the only person, period, that's been to every single QuakeCon.
No, I think there's a couple of us. The group is small.
Anyone else out in the audience that's actually been to all the QuakeCons? No, you may be unique, Tim.
Wow. Oh, yes.
Whose idea was QuakeCon?
It was their idea. It wasn't our idea. It was Todd always tells the story better than I do, but it was when Quake came out, we were so surprised that these communities formed and these friendships formed, and the myth that guys that play in computers are loners, which isn't the case. And so these people that had played together, found servers that worked well together, joined bonds. They thought, hey, let's get together and let's go someplace. Let's meet. Let's have a LAN party, and let's do it down by id, and hopefully we can get some of the id guys to come by. And it is a true grassroots volunteer event that it has taken on a life of its own.
And by the way, thanks, John, for coming over. We don't have enough cash to pay for our hotel bill. Can you help us out a little, please?
Mario, we can grab your question. I do want to lay a couple of ground rules. First of all, no spoilers. Nobody wants to hear any spoilers. If you ask about spoilers, you're not going to get your question answered. The other rule is no questions about Doom 4, because there will not be any answers. I know. Aw, sad, cute, I know. And also, one question per person would be awesome. Okay, take it away. And introduce yourself first, please.
I'm Justin. I've been an id fan for a long time. I have all the Quake titles, and I even found a journal in the 3rd grade where I wrote about 50% of my entries about playing Quake. And one of the entries is said, during spring break, I wanted to play Quake 2 and Quake 3 Arena, and it was second only to Breathing Air. And I played pretty much every single level of Quake, including Quake 4, and I've enjoyed all of it, except for Quake 4's multiplayer. I was wondering if you could tell me something that would help mitigate the fear that if you were to create Quake 5, that it would be a Quake game and not just the title.
Well, we can say first of all that there is not a current slated plan that a Quake 5 is being built. It's obviously one of the things where it's one of our crown jewels in terms of we have Wolfenstein, Doom, and Quake, and now Rage. We want to do something with it eventually, but there is nothing going on right now for that. I will say that we do have a top-level directive that multiplayer is going to be done right in all future games with dedicated servers, with care to that aspect of it. But in terms of, the other aspects of the Quake game, it's one of the things that my wife always gets mad at me when I say this about Quake 1, which is so many people's seminal favorite game. It was kind of random in terms of its design on there, and what we pick up from whether we follow, the somewhat more coherent, strong plan or revert back to revisiting the wild and wonderful Cthulhu weirdness of Quake 1. We talk about it a lot. It's not, that's a question really where maybe ask us in a year or two as other things go on, and we'll have a better sense of what we're going to be doing with that.
Eric, and Ed has been one of my best friends for the past 20 years. And my question relates to the way the industry is changing. And with the social networking games that are coming, and Zynga and all these other huge companies, and I really love the way y'all have come out with a couple of games for the phones, and I'm wondering how is there any huge direction that the companies are going to be taking? That's really it.
So, on the one hand, when you have a company that has 200 people that are mostly set up for doing AAA cross-platform games, it is a battleship that's not going to turn on a dime. I've always been excited at looking at the sort of up-and-coming areas on there. And the mobile stuff, a lot of people like to think that, there's like this big carefully crafted plan, but the truth of the mobile stuff was, like, I got a new phone, I thought the games suck, it's like, let's make a better game on this, and then, we started getting iPhones, it's like, well, we really should do something with this. But I do think that aspect of the industry is a truly wonderful thing, that there is this very low barrier to entry for people to be able to go and have a crazy idea and see it happen there, because you don't get that at the highest level. If you have 100 people working on a project for years, that's tens of millions of dollars of marketing behind it. It's true that there is a degree of conservatism there, which is balanced against the fact that we're getting really, really good at doing these highly polished, wonderfully crafted games, but it does constrict the crazy design choices that you might have. And I know there are some people that in the classic games industry that that are defensively derisive about things like Farmville and the other Zynga titles and stuff, but I look at it as it is clearly they're doing something good. They're engaging people in a way that we don't. I think there are things that we can learn from them. And one of the things that one of the executives at ZeniMax said that I thought was actually insightful as we were talking about potential risks to our way of doing things. And I would mention that, I do have to wonder if some of these cheap games, if people find that they get enough fun out of spending a couple bucks on a phone game on there, if that might have an impact on people going out and spending $50, $60 on a AAA title. But the response was that, well, the data does not seem to indicate that, and the thinking is that it's a lot easier to get somebody that's a gamer with $2 games and decides they love games